shut in the shower, you know, just little things. Always needed to carry toilet paper. There were not always Western style toilets, although I personally did not have to use an Asian toilet. There may be only one Western toilet, but I would wait for it. Meals were served family style. They had chopsticks, but if you wanted a fork, they were more than happy to bring that to you. And China does not allow access to Google and Facebook, but you can get around it. So we used the ExpressVPN, which allowed us to access. I remember once I told our tour leader, oh, I was on Facebook this morning, and she goes, oh my gosh, you're not allowed there. Where there's a will, there's a way. So like I said, we started off in Beijing at the Summer Palace. This is a big royal garden located in Beijing. 3/4 of it is water, built in the mid-1750s. And it's a great example of a lot of traditional art in the garden buildings. And on this slide, you can see this long building on the ceiling. You can see some of it here, but up here is all the artwork. Just gorgeous. And like I said, 3/4 of it is on water. So there are a lot of boats. And the one on the right is, we took one of these boats and they packed you on there, went from one side of the lake to the other. And some of the scenic views. Once again, you can see, you know, all the different boats. And this is an example of a royal boat. Then onto Tiananmen Square, and the place is huge. It's 109 acres, and I forget how many hundreds of thousands, millions of people can fit in there, but the place is huge. Mao has his picture prominently displayed there, along his body is there. But Tiananmen Square means the gate of heavenly peace. This gives you an idea of how vast it is. And this, I mean, it's hard to tell from this perspective, but it goes on and on. And one nice thing about Grand Circle is we went with Grand Circle Tours. They have your tour director, and then they also have your local guide. So this was our guide, Bob, in Tiananmen Square, and he's holding, you can see here, the proverbial flag. So we always knew where to find them. And here we are with another Sensations picture. The Forbidden City is the official residence of the royals. It's almost, you know, just under 10,000 rooms. It's huge with this big 10-foot, 35-foot wall surrounding it. And all these places, I mean, it's packed with all the tourists, and I don't think it was quite as crowded as it could be, but. So inside the Forbidden City, we call this the Chinese version of the Disney experience. So you can, I'm sure, pay your money, and then you get to put on these royal costumes and then get, you know, your picture taken. And there were a lot of people lined up to do that. Just some more pictures within the Forbidden City. This is a firefighting bat. So what they would do is fill this with water, and then when the weather turned cooler, they would line it with fabric, put a lid on it, and then they build a fire around it to keep it warm. As you can imagine, in the early days, trying to put out a fire in here would have been, you know, quite a task. And you can see all these tourists over here with the purple caps. These are the Chinese tourists, and you can always tell them because they have matching attire. Usually it's a ball cap, sometimes it's a coat, sometimes it's, you know, a t-shirt. But you can always tell which Chinese group is which. Another nice thing that Grand Circle does is they let you blend in or meet some of the local people. Now, granted, they carefully screen all these people, but in Beijing, we went to a hutong, and it's a neighborhood that starts off with a door, and then the door opens up, and on the right, you can see it's these buildings that are all strung together, and that's the hutong. And so whoops. All right. You can see Bob there. We're seated in a courtyard, and so he's telling us about it. And the lady on the right, she was the actual hostess, and her son had some kind of paper business that he sold out of one of the buildings. Oh my gosh, it's touchy. There we go. There were, I don't know how many optional excursions, maybe 5 or 6 that were not included. So you didn't have to go to these, but they provided a really great opportunity to experience the culture of the Chinese people. And this was the Peking Opera. And once again, I mean, this is all dying art forms that you just don't see. So granted, it's a tourist thing, but it really was pretty spectacular.
Jane, you had a question about when the trip was. Could you restate that, please?
Oh, sure. It was in May of 2019. So Peggy and I were gone a whole month. I think the actual trip was about 19, 20 days, something like that. Any other questions before I move on? So the Great Wall is another, I mean, it's packed too, but luckily the day we were there, it was not totally overrun with tourists, and there's several access points, and our access point was pretty accessible the day we went. But you can see on the left just how steep all the stairs going up there. Now, I did not try to climb all those stairs. I didn't feel I had anything to prove. The stairs are uneven, varying heights. I believe it looks like there's a handrail on the right, but not on the left so much all the way up. But a lot of people climbed up there. You know, this section, it was restored in the mid-50s, but it's primarily a tourist attraction now. And on the right, you can see over here, here's the little gift shop, and there you could buy some soft drinks and whatnot down here. But for me anyway, it was, I don't know, it felt like a pretty mystical place. Just, you know, this is so old and it's such an engineering feat. And it just, I don't know, it just had kind of magical properties.
Went in.
Yes.
Sorry. Hello.
Could you please mute your microphone?
I thought I did. I thought I did. Hold on. Hold on 1 second.
Jane?
Yes?
For some reason, some of the pictures tend to kind of go in and out of focus. Not sure whether that's happening.
Is it everybody having that problem?
It's happening more on my computer than on my husband's, so I think it might be computer specific.
Mine are all right.
Mine aren't, and this is Hilaire calling.
I don't know what to do about that.
I'm not sure you can do anything. I think it's a bandwidth issue.
Yes, it probably is.
Okay.
All right, so Great Wall, here's another just spectacular view. You can see how hilly it is in that area too. Then we got to visit several of these factories, which really they're just big showrooms, and I think they had a salesperson for every single one of us, because you walk in, after you see the lady on the left looks like it's a little jade ball that she's working on, and on the right I think that's a head frame. But you walk in these showrooms and they like, you know, come over here, let me show you, what are you looking for? And so it's pretty hardcore salesmanship, but I did have to buy something. Then And another opportunity to interact with the locals was at our Kung Fu school visit. And this day they were having this big exhibition. So you can see all the children seated here. Then they demonstrated some of their martial arts on the left. And these students were identified early on as having an aptitude in the martial arts, and they actually lived in the school. So you can see on the right a couple of the boys in their bunk beds, and it looks like there's 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 8 to a room, 6 to a room, so pretty tight quarters. And here's some more exhibitions of the children. So, Temple of Heaven, this is, you know, every year when they have the harvest, they come here and they pray for the harvest, they pray for rain, they give thanks to the harvest, but this was just for the royal family. None of the ordinary people ever got to come in here and see it. But within the Temple of Heaven, there were, on the right, it's game day, and it could be mahjong, I can't tell from this picture. But on the left, that's matchmaking. So parents that had a child that they wanted to marry off, this is sort of their version of Tinder or Match.com or whatever. So the parents would come and line up the qualifications on the ground, and then those seeking a match could look at them, but we ended up getting chased away from all that. I guess they didn't want us to see it, but. Our next little visit was at a pearl shop, and this is one of the samples that they held up for us, and you can see all of the pearls inside the mollusk there. So finally we left Beijing and traveled to Shanghai, and what was interesting, our hotel room that night was in a soccer stadium, and they actually had a soccer meet going on that night, and you could hear the roar of the fans, and here you can see the soccer stadium. There was a Jade Buddha temple, so on the left, of course, is a Jade Buddha, and then on the right, some of the monks associated with that temple. And it's more of the same. Then the next factory visit was a carpet and embroidery factory. So on the left, she's making the carpeting, and this is the showroom of the different carpets. And this was the embroidery. And this embroidery, it was fabulous. They're just works of art, for me anyway. And these are pictures of some of the samples. I mean, it doesn't even look like it's embroidery. The one on the right is the one that I ended up buying, and they shipped it home. I think it got here. My sister was staying in my house while I was gone, and it got here, I think, a week or so before I got home. So shipped with no problems. Shanghai's an interesting city. It's a juxtaposition of the old and the new, and we're down on the river and you're looking at the more modern side of the river. This is called the Bund. And they have this beautiful flower wall along the river. And what was interesting is this flower wall is made up, you can see on the left, the individual pots. And so when they want to change this out, they just pull the pot out and stick your new design in. So it could be changed with the seasons, depending on what they want to celebrate. Pretty clever. And this was a day we did have a little bit of rain, so a few pictures. There's Lois and Lori standing under their umbrella. And on the left-hand side, this is the British concessions side, and you can see how different the architecture is on that side versus the more modern on the other side of the river. Another one of our optional excursions was on the night river tour, and our tour director, I think, was a little hesitant to have us take this trip, but we all wanted to go. And she warned us, when you get on the ship, they bought us seating up on the second deck. She said, take your time, there's no need. You'll see the Chinese will storm the ship, and they did. And so you just had to take it all in and just take your time. But it was absolutely gorgeous. So there is the British concession side, all lit up in gold. And then on the right-hand side, we have the futuristic, modern looking buildings. We did get to visit a senior center. On the left, they were learning, I think it was an iPhone, iPad course. On the right, they were singing, and we went in there and we all sang, oh, shoot, it just flew out. You Are My Sunshine. So they were singing it in English, and they wanted us to join along with them. They had ping pong tables, and there's Hilaire with her ping pong paddle. I mean, it's nice for the seniors. They could get a haircut. These people were setting up their wares. Not sure what they were selling, maybe some homemade items of some sort. Then we got to go to the market, and this was always the part that I liked because I'm fascinated by all this stuff. So I forget our tour guide's name in Shanghai, but this is him. So he's pointing out some of the delicacies that we could see. All the vegetables on the left. On the right, this is durian. If you've never heard of durian, it's a very acquired taste. I've never tasted it, I've never smelled it, but some countries ban it because it's so foul smelling. I have friends that love it, but I don't know anybody else that really does. Just some more pictures. The lady on the left has all sorts of eggs. This is tea on the right. Some kind of meat products. And these, I swear, are the most gorgeous vegetables I've ever seen. I love these eggplants here in the middle. And we got to go to a home-hosted lunch, and our hostess on the left prepared this meal, and you can see a sample of it on the right. All of that in that little tiny kitchen. And so they served the meals. Every meal was served on a Lazy Susan, family style. The dish is put on there, and then you pass it around and take what you want, stick it back on the turntable. So usually we had soup. There was always some kind of vegetables, rice, some kind of meat. Just, you never knew exactly what was going to show up, but rice, a lot of broccoli, a lot of bok choy. Suzhou is they call it the Venice of the Orient, and we took a canal boat. So we piled on that and then cruised down, and you can see these people live right on this canal, and the lady's doing her laundry in the canal. You can see how close these houses are overlooking it. The silk factory was another interesting place we went, and this lady is sorting the different cocoons that they use for the silk. So you got to see from, growing of the silkworm and through its different stages. And then on the left, they are stretching. This is for a duvet cover, stretching it out over a mattress. You can see, excuse me, the raw silk on the right. Whoa. Now we got to take the bullet train to the Yangtze River cruise. And so this is just inside the station, pictures of the train. But inside the train on the left, you can see it tells you what time it is, how fast you're going. So we were going at that point 241 kilometers. So I don't know what that translates to, 150 miles, 140 miles an hour, something like that. It's 27 degrees outside. On the right, in China, because when they built the dam, they relocated so many people, all these buildings, and I called them the cluster condos. And they are high rises, 30 to 40 stories, groups of 4, I'd say, but then there would be 6 groups of 4 within the cluster. So, and I have no idea how many people would live in each one, but they were everywhere. This is our cruise boat. It looks like a regular cruise ship, a river cruise ship. This was the Victoria JENNA, and we were known as Sally's family. So everywhere we went was Sally's family. We were lucky when we boarded here that they had these trams to transport us from up here down to the ship. Otherwise, you can see all the steps. So we weren't quite so lucky getting off the ship. And then on the left, this is a picture of our room. I mean, small, but serviceable, and had our own bathroom. And on the right is one of the dining rooms. Of course, the Yangtze, the locks in the dam was pretty controversial project when it was built. They had to resettle over 1 million people, but this is the world's largest dam, and it took 17 years to complete. And going up, there was a series of several escalators going up to our vantage point, and you can look down and see the locks. On the right, this gives you a really good view of how big these locks are. And then the building on the left, there's the observation point up there. And here we are in the heart of the Yangtze River. You know, it's the cradle of civilization, if you will. About 1/3 of the people in China live here. Some more scenic views as we go along the river. Now on the left and the right, see this right here? Can y'all see my cursor moving? Oh, you can't.
Yes.
Yes,
we
we
can.
can see it.
Okay, so they're called the hanging coffins. And these are little crevices in the mountains, and they would put the coffin up here. This one, I'm not sure on the right, might be right down in here. But imagine, you know, getting up there, putting your coffin in the wall. It's just amazing. There's some more of the scenery as we went along. The river tribe of the Three Gorges. Hilaire's the only one that went on this trip, but this is some of the most picturesque scenery in the whole Yangtze River Valley. You can see some of their boats. Just see how I don't know, misty kind of, it's just, I don't know, it's beautiful. And then this young lady's all dressed up in her traditional garb. The lady on the right doing their laundry. But look how colorful all the clothing is. And we did go visit a relocated family, where this was our hostess on the left, and down below where the children are, they had, it was like, I don't know, I guess I'd call it kind of the 7-Eleven-ish type place, little storefront, and they lived on top. And there we are, crowded into her home, and she's explaining. And the government would make them an offer. Okay, here's what we'll do for you, and you could pretty much take it or leave it. And if you didn't take it, you were on your own. The Fengdu market, you can see on the right, there was some live produce for you, a few ducks. But I thought the lady on the left, interesting with her basket and her carrying her children. And on the left, all sorts of all these rice noodles. And then another, you know, typical way of carrying your goods with the, I guess, the yoke and the carrying the baskets over your shoulder. And here we are Peggy and I had upgraded, so we sat up at, we had the same dining table every night. And so this was our group picture. The couple on the right, she ended up having to leave early because she hurt her knee. And so after we got through the Terracotta Warriors, they flew home. But Grand Circle took great care of them. I think it was in Shanghai it happened, and they got them to a doctor at the hospital, and the doctor kept in touch with them. I mean, they took great care of them. So, and I talked about when we got on the ship, how easy we had it. When we got off the ship, it wasn't quite so easy. So they took our big luggage. But if your carry-on, you could either pay to have them take it, or you could take it yourself. But they warned you that all of the locals would be trying to help you. And if you gave them even a look in their direction, then they would take that as, yes, you were going to pay them to help you. So you had to lug it, you know, up these steps. It doesn't look so bad right here, but trust me, when you're carrying your backpack or your hand luggage up these steps, it gets tough.
I think I counted over 400 steps one time.
Oh my gosh.
I think that was coming down in the beginning where they had the tram cars. They weren't working when we came back to the ship that day, and we had to walk down those steps.
See, I blocked that out. So Chongqing is the next stop. That was at the end of the cruise. And so you can see it's the home of the pandas, so our little panda buddies right here. And this was the wartime capital that Shanghai SCHH established. And then we went to see the pandas. And they're so doggone adorable. But man, can they eat through that bamboo. And they use those front paws and they strip the bamboo off and just shove it in. But they're pretty good size, up to 350 pounds. And this guy was trying to escape. He's climbing up. I don't know that he's going to go anywhere, but he said, let me out. Then the terracotta soldiers were next. And you can see in this building just how big an area that this covers. They were discovered in 1974, and there's over 2,000 warriors and horses, and there's 3 sites, and none of these are exactly the same. So there we are with another Sun Stations picture next to the proverbial gift shop. The ones on the left are not in the gift shop. And I remember that when these were first discovered, they went on tour, and I remember seeing them in Columbus, Ohio, and I asked about it, and they said, yeah, but they never let the real ones out of the country. They were all imitations. So I was kind of disappointed. That here we are, you know, down below the earth. Here's some, I think these are horses and more figurines. Just how vast it is. And on the right, there's another group of school children, and they have their orange hats, and it looks like some kind of orange tie around their neck. Another school visit, and the children performed for us. They kind of, each one took one of us and then showed us what they were working on. They gave us several performances. And then on the right is a group picture. And this was another optional show to the Tang Dynasty show. Again, more of the cultural ways that, you know, as cultures mature, the older ways get forgotten. And so this is just another way to keep things alive. The Wild Goose Pagoda was in XIAN, and there it is on the left. And so in the past, people would come and scribe their names on a tablet, and we got to write our own names. Now, Peggy did an excellent job on her calligraphy. Mine didn't turn out so well, but there we are in school trying to pay attention as to how you do this. And another thing, wherever we went in China, there was always a bride and a groom doing some kind of picture taking. So this is just one example. This lady in her red gown. Excuse me. This is at the wall around XIAN. Some more pictures. You can see, you know, here we are in the old XIAN, and you can see off in the distance the new part of town. In Guilin, we did a day cruise on the Li River. It was probably, I don't know, maybe 3-4 hours, if that long. But there were spots on the Yangtze and on the Li that, if you look at the Chinese currency, there are scenes that they have on the back of those currencies, and you could take they would tell you, okay, we're at this spot, and this is where it matches up. Excuse me. Got a tickle. Just some more, you know, little wildlife along the river, a few pagodas. And I almost didn't go to the tea garden and the tea ceremony, because I've been up to, you know, the place in Charleston, and I thought, oh, it'll just be more of the same, but it really wasn't. So these are the tea fields, and I'm not sure if these are some of us with our hats on out in the tea fields walking around, or some of the actual workers. Then we got a tea ceremony. We got to sit around, and they showed us about pouring of the tea. This right here is it's a block of tea. I forget what it's called now, but just very interesting. And we ended up in Hong Kong. As I said before, this was 2 weeks before all of the protesting started. So we got to see it in all its glory. Kind of an overcast day, but it gives you an idea. This is what was it, Victoria Peak, looking down on the city. There's some more of the shots. We took a ferry coming back over into town. Look, the Ferris wheel. We visited this little bird garden, and people would bring their birds, and they would, you know, kind of like the dog park of Hong Kong, only with birds. But, you know, don't stick your fingers in the cages. There's also a flower mart and all these wonderful flowers, and I couldn't resist this little kitty cat trying to get into the flowers. And there was a nunnery we visited in the middle of Hong Kong. The beautiful pagoda. And then we had our farewell dinner, and this is Sally. This was our tour director sitting here in the middle. Sally had a husband and one son, and we often wonder what's happened to her, you know, since we had our trip. I thought I'd talk a little bit about, you know, what the meals were like. So we showed you earlier, everything was always on a turntable. And so there's some dumplings, some looks like chicken wings. Hard to tell what some of this other stuff is. But these were some of my favorites. Soup dumplings, I love soup dumplings. I love dumplings of anything, any kind. And on the right are chicken feet, which I had eaten before. And when I was working, when I was in California, and so my group, we always kind of celebrated when somebody that worked for me got their signature authority. We went out for dim sum, and they had to eat a chicken foot. So it always has special memories for me. And you could usually find something to eat, I think, no matter what they served. This looks like our dumpling. We had a dumpling luncheon today. But there was, I think somebody was a vegan. They were able to accommodate pretty well. So just some quick pictures of buildings and architecture. On the left, you know, some of the older style. On the right, just how densely it's all built up. And on the left, you know, I worked construction projects, and I'd seen these pictures, but it's nothing like until you see it in person of the wooden scaffolding that makes you wonder, how does it even stay up there? But they make it stay up. And so then just some of the architecture, the different buildings, some of the skyscrapers. And this was mostly in Beijing and Shanghai. Like I said, there was some more of the modeling that went on. Another bride, the one on the right, was in Hong Kong. A few daily life pictures, guy on the left sweeping the streets, and then this motorcycles, when it rained, then they had these covers, and it would not only protect them, but keep their motorcycle dry too, or their scooter. Just a few more. This was a seafood market, all the different types of seafood. And we've got a food cart on the left and a lit up pagoda on the right, just some more. And then I will say Grand Circle, we got to take many different forms of transportation. So we had the golf cart, we had a rickshaw, we had trains, we had planes, I don't know that we had automobiles, buses. So you got a wide smattering of different types of transportation. And just some pretty flowers. And then this is our Grand Circle flag. You know, we had a great time. So I think there's some, I'm gonna stop sharing. So I think we have some show and tell that, Lois, do you want to go ahead and show your? We need to unmute.
Yes, those of you who are on the presentation, if you'll unmute, and also for those watching, if you have the small pictures right now, choose the opposite view up in the upper right corner of your screen, and you'll be able to see the show and tell better.
I want you.
Okay. I originally wanted to buy a silk Chinese dress, and I looked at the Great Wall, and they were almost $200, so I passed on it. When we got to the senior center, they had a gift shop there, and voila, here was the dress that was in the gift shop, and it was under $100, and I got a scarf, a stole to go with it. So even though I don't like short sleeves, the stole takes care of that because it covers up the sleeves. I got my ring at the pearl place, and the earrings on the boat where a guy was putting them together, custom made. So that was really fun. And I like blue, so I got a coordinated fan to go with my outfit. And when I wear something else other than the silk thing, I'll probably wear the scarf more than anything else. This is a beautiful silk scarf that has some different shades of blue in it. And I will wear this a lot. The dress, probably not again, because I think I've gained a few pounds since I first bought it, and it was stressful getting into it. I have on a girdle that I haven't worn for 10 years, so that I could get in the dress. But it was fun. And it also had a slip up to here, which I've sewed up. So you only see a little leg, not a whole leg. So that's my show and tell.
Oops.
come back.
Lori, don't you have something there too?
I have a cute thing we picked up. We went to the Bird's Nest, the Olympic Stadium, and they were vending these, and it's kites in a string and pandas. That's the cute one. This is our group. Do I have too much?
That looks good.
That's good.
Yeah,
Is it
that's
good?
good.
Mhm.
In Tiananmen Square. That was that day. I have a kimono on from Lois that she bought at the Great Wall. Got that one? Oh, really too close.
Lois was our shopper.
A wonderful jade necklace that we got at the jade shop. Everybody picked up a little bit of jade, I think, on the trip. But we were fabulously taken care of. I recommend Grand Circle, I think we all do. And we had the most homogeneous group of people that we could ask for. Only one person got sick, and it was the 21-year-old granddaughter who had been given the trip by her grandmother as a gift for graduating college. And the rest of us ate everything and flourished. Back to you.
Who else has show and tell?
I do. It's Joan.
Joan.
I've got a couple of things. And I can't see myself, so I'm hoping I'm showing this properly, but anyway.
You're good.
I have my Great Wall t-shirt. And I too got a really pretty silk scarf. And then I got another one that's really kind of interesting because it's double-sided with a slightly different pattern on each side.
Nice.
And I bought 2 of those beautiful embroidered pictures. Is that close enough?
Closer.
That's kind of a typical
There you go.
bird. And then the other kind of design that's rather typical are the fish. And these embroideries were absolutely fabulous. They even had some there that were embroidered versions of famous paintings. I know they had one of Van Gogh's Starry Night and one of the Monet's Water Lilies. And they were just absolutely unbelievable. They even had some that were 2-sided. They had one, I remember, had a tiger head on one side, and on the other side, it was a lion's head, and it was all done with only one very thin piece of material between them. It wasn't 2 of them put back to back. It was embroidered from one side and from the other side, and it was different colors. I have no idea how they could have done that.
Any other show and tell? Got a couple of questions. Somebody asked about, did we have a meal of Peking duck? And yes, we did.
Oh,
They carved it in front of us. I didn't put those pictures in. I wish now I had. And my impression, it was all right. It's not something I really remember a whole lot. Did we worry about getting sick? Well, they warned us about drinking the water, and as much as I would have loved to have eaten street food, I didn't. But unfortunately, I ate something, and on the way home, I got sick. But it was the last day out of Bangkok. So was the jade reasonable in price? I don't even remember.
Yes.
yes.
What was the activity level?
Moderate,
It was very doable.
Moderate.
moderate.
like I said, you could do as much or as little as you want. Like if you wanted to climb up at the Great Wall and climb all those steps, you could. If you didn't want to, you didn't have to. So, but I don't think anybody really missed out on anything. It was, and they do a pretty good pace of, keeping things going and then, giving you some rest time.
Our group,
The worst thing we had was from the Yangtze River was at its lowest level, and the steps were 150 steps. And of course, we visited along, and they were graduated into 14 steps each, so you could rest. But that was the most strenuous it was, and some people chose not to do it.
One of the other things that was not real nice about the steps was they didn't usually have a railing. So
Right.
I had a cane with me that I kept, and that was a big help on the stairs.
I had 2 men help me up the stairs.
I'm Marion Shuttleworth, and I went to China in 1985. So what you're showing is quite different from what I saw.
Ooh.
China was just opening up then. The hotels in Beijing were good, but as we went further along, the quality of the hotels were worse and worse, where the air conditioning hopefully worked, but it rattled a lot. I found it very
You
exciting.
can't hear what she's saying.
One of the things that I think I didn't go with Grand Circle, but it was another group. But I never liked lima beans, but our table had lima
We
beans.
can't hear what she's saying.
Oh, you can't hear?
We can.
It's very faint, but I hear it.
It's faint. It's faint.
It's faint. You can hear
Yes.
it. But the
I can hear
pollution
it.
wasn't as bad as pictures. But you're talking 35 years ago.
Right.
But very interesting. And I bought a lot of stuff. Did you go to a cloisonné factory?
No.
You could buy it on the street everywhere. I think we all bought bracelets very reasonably.
Yeah. Shanghai, I bought a silk rug there that's on my wall. It's a big one. But it was, the bargains were fantastic.
We saw hundreds of empty buildings that have just been, built out of nowhere in no man's land practically. And it's just incredible how much money they've spent for people they expected to come out of the outer regions into the cities. So that was very interesting.
Now, I was there before they built the dam. It's completely different. But you're talking 1985, so that's a long time ago.
Everything was very, very clean. People were sweeping the streets. I saw one banana peel, but no graffiti. Everything was clean, and we were in a canal where it could have been awful, and it wasn't. I suspect that if you were caught defacing things, it was probably pretty stiff penalties. And I was just, everywhere was manicured, kept up, and they didn't restrict where we could go at all. Did you ever feel we had restrictions?
No.
No.
In 1985, yes, we did.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Grand Circle, the accommodations, the hotel rooms were absolutely fabulous. I went on to the Taiwan portion of it, and my hotel room was more square feet than my guide's house. Of course, his house was only like 400 square feet, but which is typical.
We had 4 nights on the Yangtze River cruise, and I thought the Victoria JENNA ship, which we were on, was just fabulous. Fabulous.
Absolutely.
The interior was so exquisite. It's it's hard to even describe it. You'd have to see many, many pictures for us to have displayed the beauty of it. Yeah.
Each evening there was a show, and someone expressed interest to play mahjong. And they set up a room, and we all went in and we played Chinese mahjong. And we were really just, we were the only group on there, weren't we?
Yeah.
No, there were other groups.
Sally taught us.
Different was it?
No card.
How different was it, Lori?
We were on the with everybody group, and the food was good, and we found what we had to eat. We were with in the Chinese restaurant part of it. We had a lovely balcony off our room, nice big room.
I think she meant how different was the mahjong.
Right.
Mahjong, you'd have to play either kind for me to explain it.
Yeah, they did not use a card.
No
It's all
card.
by memory.
It's much more basic, didn't you think?
Well, I wouldn't call it basic. I can't really remember how we played it.
But we were accommodated everywhere. When you saw the River Lee pictures, whenever you see one of those beautiful screens or scrolls, you see these bullet-shaped mountains. And that was the only place we saw those.
Mm-hmm. Right.
They never ended. We'd go around a corner and there's more of them. It was an absolutely fabulous trip. The whole thing.
I liked the artist that they had on the boat. The guy that painted inside of the glass beads was absolutely amazing. The tiny little brush strokes that are inside of the
I don't know if they can see it.
necklace.
Move to your left.
I can't see what I'm doing.
Up and, there, perfect.
There you go.
You can
Back
see
it up just a little bit so it gets in focus.
there it goes.
A little more.
There's a hole drilled in the center of the bead, and he uses a teeny tiny brush to paint the cherry blossoms inside the necklace, inside the bead. And every time I go by, I look.
We did.
They also had some interesting shows, and they even did a thing with the Chinese medicine. And Lauren, was it you that got the treatment?
I had an acupuncture treatment. I had 2 of them on the Victoria JENNA. And when I came back to the United States, it was fully paid for by the insurance I had.
Wow.
That was $250 worth of American money.
Well, thank you so much, ladies. This was wonderful. And I'm so glad you were able to share with us today. I want to wrap up the meeting